This is the Swarm and Shoot Football Show with me, Manny Matsakis, the head football coach at Defiance College, where we feature Defiance College football and everything that influences our program. This show is brought to you by our friends at Big B Coffee, right across the street here on North Clinton Street. And it's literally right across from our offices. They do a fantastic job, and they support our program and this particular podcast. Get the finest coffee beverages in Defiance, as well as great pastries, breakfast sandwiches to start your day off and get a pick-me-up in the afternoon. Today's episode is number 25. And in this episode, Lynn and I are going to give you some insight to our recruiting and staffing plans as we head into the holiday season. So how's it going, Lynn?
It's going good. My free Big B coffee. Never beat the 12th one, Coach.
Oh, is that what you got?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Little holiday treat, you know?
That is a good holiday treat. It is that season.
Yes,
Pretty
sir.
Fired up.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot going on, really.
Yeah. Your job never ends.
Well, it's the fun thing about it is it transitions month by month and quarter by quarter. There's always different things that you're emphasizing, which I think in this profession, coaching college football, it's just a lot of fun. I mean, it's we're fortunate. We get to work with good players and, great coaching staff, and we get them out on the road and they do some good things. This time of year, a lot of home visits going on for the next few months, really. Yep.
I saw Coach Johnson was out in the Northeast at Connecticut, I think, over the last weekend and covering some state championship games there. And
yeah, it was awesome. I mean, we're fortunate there because he's able to, and a lot of our guys will do this. I mean, he was able to get out there. We got the flight for him, and then very low cost for us because he's staying with a buddy he played with at Iowa. So sometimes we'll go and stay with family, friends, and different places that we're recruiting around the country, and it really helps. But Javon found quite a bit of talent in Connecticut. It's a bit of a hotbed. But it's very condensed when you look at like the area. It's not a very big state, but there's a lot. I mean, there's like over 40 Division I players that just come out of that one state in Connecticut.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's changed a little bit.
Yeah. It never used to be quite so much. Yeah. So, I mean, the football is very good there. And, we have quite a few relationships. I was actually born in Connecticut, believe it or not.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So, and not that helps us recruiting there, but it's just interesting that is such a good area that we have not been into. We do have one player on our current roster from the state of Connecticut, which is great, So I think that that'll help as we get out there and into all these other regions that we're in right now.
Yeah, and you're kind of everywhere right now, or where are you focusing your attention in recruiting right now, Coach?
Well, right now, Lynn, we start in Ohio, and what we're doing there is we split the state up, and each coach has a different area that they're recruiting. So like right now, Javon is in Northeast Ohio, the Cleveland, Youngstown area over that way. Coach Shank is in Central Ohio. And then in the Northwest, in this region here, we got Coach Wilson's there, and then Coach Boland is down in Southwest Ohio, which would be the Dayton, Cincinnati area. And then he also handles what we call the Valley, the Ohio Valley, which is over near Wheeling, West Virginia, and Steubenville, right down that area, because he could stay, that's where he grew up in that area. So we can hit that area with him. And then Coach Mestry's got Southern Ohio. So it's that's how we handle Ohio. And then out of state, it's we've got New York, New Jersey, where we'll talk about this. We're in the midst of hiring a new coach, a linebacker coach. So we want to get him in that region there. Like we talked about Coach Johnson in New England. The Southeast United States, we got Coach Shank and Coach Yeomans down there. They just got back from a nice trip in Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina, that region there. And then Coach Johnson, is basically he's in the Midwest. We put him all over that area. West of the Mississippi, we do a lot of phone recruiting and emailing, and Coach Mestry will have that. California, Coach Shank, and then what we call Appalachia, which would be West Virginia and some of those markets there. Coach Boland's there. So we are spread out pretty hot and heavy. We like to, we've got quite a few players. I think 16, 17 states represented on our roster right now.
Yeah.
And so that's a testament to being able to get out and educate these prospects on how awesome it is to come to Northwest Ohio and play for the Yellow Jackets.
Take me through first in-state. How do you find out about these guys? And I know it's easier in the Northwest part here because you can drive and see them real quick.
No doubt.
But say Southeast Ohio, Southwest Ohio, Cincinnati area, how are you finding out about?
Well, we got a guy that I've known for years. I used to do a magazine out in Youngstown called the Steel Valley Preview, and his name is Mark Porter. And Mark runs this website he's done it for years called scoutingohio.com. And it is, I would say, the premier source of information for these guys in the state of Ohio. So we get in there, and then we work the numbers. He sends us, hey, he's been to all these schools, and then he'll give us some names, and then we go to all these different like recruiting fairs. They've got them, Coach Boland was at one down in the Dayton area, and then I think Coach Wilson jumped on one down in Delaware, Ohio. And, there's just different ones all over that we go to these, and then it helps us get a better understanding of the players in each of those markets. So we just keep drilling it down, and then when we find the types of players that fit what we want, then we go into the high school, meet with the coaches, and then right now we're in heavy home visits. So you'll see a lot of times our coaches will tweet, hey, here's a picture of so-and-so and we're in their home. And, sometimes, I think it was Coach Shank and Coach Yeomans had a real nice visit where they, and they had the high school coach was there. The mom cooked a great meal, and it was, down in the South. So it's nice. So sometimes you get those little perks where they're, hey, come to the house and we'll cook you a dinner, a homemade meal or something, which is great.
Do you guys hit almost every high school in Ohio?
Every high school.
You're
oh yeah. No doubt.
In every high school.
Yeah. We're pretty much doing, we've either phoned it or we're in it. And when we start to get in it is when we know it's a hot prospect, somebody that just is the kind of guy that we want to play for Defiance College. So it's like when we know who that is, then we're in the high school and in the homes even more than that. So when we get to home visit time, then it's it's a top prospect for us.
Yep. And then you get out of state. Take me through the process of finding kids in those regions. Is it more video, kind of what you're finding on the net, or where do you find a kid, say California, Florida, Texas, wherever it may be?
Yeah. Now, some of it comes from our contacts of places that different coaches have been. So we know these high school coaches. So since they know we're here and we stay in communication with them, they'll send us, hey, here's my top prospects, so-and-so. And Twitter is just remarkably a good resource for us because kids will hit us up on our Defiance College Twitter feed, DC at DCFB, and we'll get kids messaging us, and then each individual coach will get messages from players. Hey, check my film out, and all this, and they'll send a link. We'll watch them, and if it's a good fit, then we start to run the background check on guys and make sure that they're the kind of guys we want here. And that's how we handle coast to coast. And there's lots of kids, as you know, you've sat in Coach Shank's office and seen all the players, on his board and everything, and how many guys he's on, which is significant.
Yep. Take me through kind of dwindling the list and how you go from thousands or whatever you have of applications that you have to go through.
And there are.
Take me through that process. It's a long process.
Yeah. Well, what happens is we know they're serious if they apply to Defiance College. So once they apply, then it goes. I think of it as a funnel. It's like, here's all these players that are applying that would like the opportunity to earn to be basically offered a roster spot, and that's what we call this, because you only have so many guys at each position you're going to bring in. So we know in advance who these guys are, but then once they're accepted, then as opposed to just have watched their highlight film, now what we do, and this is the stage we're in at this point, is we'll come in and we will start watching all the defensive guys, or with the defensive staff, they start screening everybody that's been accepted. Once you're accepted, boom, we're really looking, and then the offensive staff will screen the guys on that side of the ball, and then they start ranking guys and know, hey, if we're going to offer X amount of quarterbacks or receivers, linebackers, any of the positions, we rank these guys out and say, okay, well, here's the cutoff point. These are the top guys for us. And then from that point, I send a letter out to them offering them the roster spot. And a lot of times you'll see that on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
A kid will take a picture of the letter that I sent them, and knowing that they've gotten offered a roster spot. They don't get offered that unless they've been accepted. So there are a lot of players that are always trying to get into that funnel of ours, knowing that that's their best shot to get on our squad.
Yeah, and I know we were talking before we came in here about the South and how football is kind of different down there, where it's almost year-round, I guess you could call it.
It is, in some markets. In Florida, for instance, they have spring ball. So you get a different a player that's developed a little bit differently. And there's a lot of merit to going down there. One, because we have success, but the other part of it is we look at it when you look at kids from the North. And I didn't really think about this until one year when I was at Texas Tech, and we would recruit players from the state of Texas, and it was almost like, it was crazy there, because like the recruiting pundits in the state of Texas were like, how in the world, why would you ever leave the state of Texas to recruit? They would like almost insult Leach, saying like, hey, we got enough players here. Why are you going to Chicago? Why are you going to New Jersey? Why are you going wherever, all these other places? And Mike's idea was, we started figuring out, it makes a lot of sense. The players in Texas were so highly developed in high school because of that year-round emphasis and spring ball and all these things that they're doing, that what you see on film is what you get. The difference is when we started to go to other markets. If you go to Georgia, which parts of a lot of Georgia doesn't have spring ball, and we would hit all these other markets, and it's like you see a guy who he jumps off the film at you, but you also realize he, for basically his freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, going into his senior year, he didn't have spring ball. He lost a lot of reps there, but when you get those guys, their upside was much higher than the kids we had from Texas, who they didn't peak out, but they were further along in their process. So you gave those out-of-state kids in these markets a little bit more ability to grow and mature within the program, and that's why. When we were there, we didn't just recruit the state of Texas, which has great football, don't get me wrong, but it was important for us to cast a bigger net, and that's how we went to bowl games every year. And, at one point, Mike was, ranked number 1 in the country in Lubbock, Texas, which shouldn't be happening,
Yeah. Do you have a timeline on when you kind of want to have all these recruits evaluated? Is there a timeline for you, or is it kind of, I know it's different D3 with the signing periods that Division I has and all that other stuff.
The pure, true evaluation of guys that have been accepted is happening now. So that's when it happens. It never really stops as long as guys are getting into the funnel. As soon as we get boom, here's an alert, here's this guy's been accepted, then each side of the ball will watch him and see where he ranks compared to the other guys at his position. So it never stops. It just sort of dies down toward the end of May, right around then. That's what I would say. And then you stay on guys that have committed, and and make sure that they realize how great a decision they made to commit and get their deposit in and get everything rolling to play for us.
Yep. take me through kind of the holidays, after the holidays. What's kind of your next game plan with recruiting and where you're kind of going with those kinds of things?
Well, during the holidays, some coaches will actually, it's not necessarily a break, we'll always be recruiting through messaging and so forth, occasionally phone calls. We may even go to a basketball game. A lot of football players are basketball players, so you'll pop in and see a young man play basketball and just to be there. So we always want to work our presence through the holidays, and that's how recruiting will go. And then when we come back early in January, then we'll do some. We're going to target certain areas and as we head down, right now, the initial target early January is from Defiance as you head down toward Tennessee. And that's a market. So we'll scatter and say, okay, you coaches go to Cincinnati, you guys get to Kentucky, you guys take this part of Tennessee, boom, 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 and then we'll sort of rally in Nashville with all the coaches at this point, because there's an opportunity to meet a lot of coaches this year in Nashville because the National Coaches Convention is going on there, and all these high school coaches from that region are there. So normally a convention's a convention, but when it's in a region that we're recruiting, it's really recruiting. It's not like we're sitting going to convention speeches and stuff like that very much. It's more of a, hey, you meet these high school coaches in the lobby. Sometimes you'll do home visits at night in that region right there. So that's our plan for January, and that'll get us up to the point where our current players will be coming in. And we'll talk about that in other podcasts about some of the things we'll be doing when our players get here. But that's the plan between now and then, and just keep getting the best possible prospects into our funnel.
Yeah, I know you have a bigger staff at this point right now than what you did a year ago. Are you in more areas, able to recruit more regionally and nationally and those kinds of things?
Yeah, I mean, a year ago, right now, what I had was I had Coach Shank wasn't even here yet, so I had Coach Wilson and one new full-time hire, and at that point we had both our Coach Mestry wasn't here yet at that point, so we had Coach Fox, which was Clay, who's played here, was our GA, so we had 3 guys basically, and myself. That's it. A year ago this time. But then everything, when January hit and we started hiring more coaches, and we got Coach Bowen, Coach Johnson, and everybody sort of built up at that point. So that's given us, last year we had basically half a year to get that recruiting class in. The reason we're in so many more quality players is we've had more coaches work it and create the type of, at least cast a big enough net where we can find the best quality players that fit for our program.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sounds good, Coach. Sounds like things are going well, and you guys are everywhere and trying to find the next jacket.
Yeah, it's going good, and we're excited, to close this thing out. We're going to be bringing in a new linebacker coach, which will be awesome. We've just waiting on his background check to come through, so I can't really talk about him. But he'll be on the on our staff shortly, and then from that standpoint, he'll be hitting the road immediately, and then we'll get him on this podcast after the new year.
Awesome. Sounds good, Coach.
Yeah.
Excited.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to have some fun, and looking forward to this as we build into the holidays. And then next week we'll talk about some of the improvements going on in the program. But thank you so much, everybody out there, for listening to the podcast, and we'll be back in touch soon. Thank you for joining us on the Swarm and Shoot Football Show. If you're listening to this podcast, make sure to subscribe in iTunes. Give us a rating and comment on the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the bell so you can get notifications when we release the next show. Feel free to comment below on this specific show. If you'd like to get all kinds of updates, go to our website at swarmandshoot.com, where you will be up to date on everything in our program. You will get this podcast
from an audio version as well as the YouTube version, all on our website. You'll see feature articles on our current players and alumni, along with updates of everything that we can share with you that's going on in our program. Take a minute, subscribe with your email to receive regular alerts every time we update the website.